Hey, welcome, guys. I so apologize. Let me get everything going here. Yeah, I so apologize that I came to you via recording tonight. There's a lot of stuff that's going on. I have a daughter that's broke down. My 18-year-old broke down that I about 3 hours away. She's on a road trip, and I need to get to her. But I wanted to get this recorded and out to you guys in case I don't get back in time. Thank you so much for allowing all of this to go, and hopefully the message will come across. Also, wanted to I didn't want to miss some things out as well, and so I recorded. Um, I've got this down, recorded. No, what that's the word. Written down, so I don't miss out on this one. Yeah, because emotionally, I've got so many things going on. Some of you. So aloha, thank you for being here. I'm in my office, so you see my Aloha compass versus the recording studio downstairs with the beachfront sunset. So most of you have seen on my Facebook and so forth that just recently we had to put one of our dogs down, and that's a dog that my goodness, she was with us almost 16 years, and the um, so it hit me kind of differently, right? In the thoughts of things going on and how attachments and um so I wanted to talk tonight about that it's something very, very, very real, obviously, that I wanted to talk about letting go, not just letting go of people and things, right? But I want to talk about how difficult it can be to let go of the old operating system, because sometimes we know something needs to change, but still have a hard time releasing that, right? Um, but my pup, Black, if those of you who haven't seen and stuff, we have standard poodles. And the reason we have the standard poodles is simply because of one, we like the big dogs, and two, poodles are hypoallergenic and I think that's the right word anyway, and with my allergies and so forth, they're perfect dogs. And so up to this point, for 15 years, the first one, Belle, and then about 4 or 5 months ago, we lost our second one, who was 14, Beignet, and we had to put her down with because of a tumor. And then now Belle, 15 years, and now we're down to one, and we have one who's 8 years old, Kenai. So I don't want to make this tonight about losing a pet, but the experience caused me to think something about something much much bigger. That when something has been a part of our lives for so long, it becomes woven into the rhythm, right? The rhythm of the world and or of our world, and we don't conscientiously think about it every day. It's just there. She was part of the house. She was part of the routine, right? Part of the family. Part of what normal feels like. And then eventually you can reach a point where you know something has to change, right? You know that things aren't what they once were. Intellectually, what may need to happen, you understand that. But knowing something intellectually and being emotionally prepared to release it are two completely things. And I found myself thinking about that, right? Because 15 years old, Um, she was blind in one eye, which we then discovered that was a very aggressive cancerous tumor that was taking over her eye and moving into her sinus cavity, and so aggressive that it grew so fast in just several days. And so there was one of those, right, that intellectually it was, absolutely time to let her go. Emotionally, it was tough, right? And so that's where it got me thinking, right? That That's what we do with our operating systems, right? There are beliefs that we've carried for decades, habits, way we respond, the way we handle our money, the stories that we, have told ourselves and carried for decades. Um, and even in things that I talked about a few weeks ago, right? Little white lies, right? They feel a part of us forever. And when we think back on certain stories, right, maybe we um, enhance them a little bit, right? And you remember doing that what do they call it? The story circle that somebody tells the story or whispers in an ear, and then it goes around the circle, and by the time it goes back, it's a completely different story, right? And so that's what happens, right? Is we've done that all of our lives, and where we started on a foundation of an operating system that we then moved up and then we created. Then over all these years, what happened is we ran into a different story on top of a different story, or embellished the story, or even when even when creates outcomes that we don't want, and even when we know that there's something better available, we still hold on, right? We still hold on because letting go of the familiar, letting go of the familiar can feel harder than living with something that no longer serves us. Now, let me say that again. Letting go of the familiar can feel harder than living with something that no longer reserves us. Familiar, the challenge is that we've crossed over certain words, right? And familiar doesn't mean functional. Doesn't mean functional. And here's what I want you to remember, okay, is that familiar, write that down, write that down. Familiar does not always mean functional, right? Think about, yeah, oh my gosh, phones, right? 20, 15, 20 years ago, right? The software on the programs. And I've shared this before with you because with some of you, that when I was first looking at doing coaching way back, this would have been 90, excuse me, 1997, 1998, somewhere right there where I first started doing business coaching. And the gentleman had a import business, and it was bringing stuff in from China and so forth, and multiple areas over in the Orient and Asia and so forth. And I asked him how he's going to do his marketing, and he said, "Well, there's this new thing coming out. It's called the World Wide Web, right? WWW. Now we're at the point, right, that everything had to be www first, and now we're at the point we just type it in and it automatically comes up because it's familiar enough with the www. However, there are times that you don't put that in, and the way that the URL has been programmed into that software, it doesn't come up unless you type www dot, right? And then there's the HTTPS or just the HTTP, right? Because the S is secure, and without the S it isn't. And so if you're running the software from 15, 20 years ago, you wouldn't say, but I've had this software forever, right? It's been loaded on my computer. I've had it forever. I mean, the phones, right? It's updated, right? It's updated all the time. Phones, we get that all the time. Hey, a new update will be installed. Hey, a new update will be installed. Hey, overnight it's going to happen. This. Why? Because the environment changed, technology changed, requirements changed, right? Now, some of the changes that we see in the updates we don't always agree with, right? Our needs change. Uh, here's what's crazy though. As human beings, we do something interesting. We will update our phone, we'll update our computers, televisions, cars, appliances. Okay. And sometimes we keep running the exact same internal programming we've been running since we were 8, 18, 7, 12. It doesn't matter. And then we wonder why certain parts of our lives never change, right? That program may have made sense once, which is critical. That was important. Okay. Your old operating system may not have been a stupid operating system. Okay. It may have protected you. It may help you survive something. It may have even helped you fit in. It may have helped you through a difficult situation, a difficult season. It may have been exactly what you needed then. But here's the question. Is it what you need now? Because those are two completely different questions. Two completely different questions, right? Sometimes we end up defending old operating systems, right? There's several reasons for that because when old programming is attacked, one of the biggest is simply, well, we've rehearsed this and done this so many times it feels true. I've never been good with money. I don't trust people. Oh, I'm just a procrastinator. I never get started. Even myself, I'll even say this, right? I'll even go out there and say, hey, I do 90-day madman cycles because, excuse me, because with my goals, I'm not good at 12-month goals because I don't get started until the 11th month. That's an old operating system, right? I'm a procrastinator. I'm terrible with technology. I don't understand that, right? That's just an old programming. Don't have time. People who look like me don't do things like that. People who come from us. I wasn't born with a silver spoon, right? I've always had a temper. I've always been disciplined. I've never been disciplined, right? Not a confident person. Oh, I don't even like going into parties because I don't feel comfortable walking into parties. I don't, on and on and on. Listen carefully to that language. Always, never. It's just me, right? Those are operating system statements, and repetition creates familiarity. Then familiarity starts masquerading as identity. And that's when change becomes difficult. That's when it becomes difficult because we're in the familiar. The familiar became our identity. And by having that identity, right now you're asking me to change? You're asking me to change my identity? Really? Okay, that's where it becomes difficult. Not because we're asking to change something you do, right? It becomes because it not asking you to change something you do, asking you to change who you are. And as you get into that, the system then automatically goes, no, 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 no. We don't do that. That's not us. The same old system protects itself over and over and over again, not because it's necessarily good for you, but because it's familiar, right? The human mind loves predictability or, yeah, predictable outcomes. Even predictable pain can sometimes feel safer than unfamiliar possibility. Predictable pain can sometimes feel safer than unfamiliar possibility. I want you to think about something, okay? And I want you to, if we were live, we could probably put some of this in the chat, but I want you to think about one area of your life where you know your operating system probably needs an update. Maybe it's money, relationships, health, business, confidence, time, focus, right? The way you react when things don't go your way, the way you talk to yourself, the way you handle uncertainty, the way you respond when somebody disappoints you. I remember I went through a training program years ago, and it had three parts. The first part was the person sitting across. We had partners, and they had to switch flip flop on us, and or we would reverse roles. And the first one was the person listening would listen very intently to everything that was going on. Then the second role would be that same person listening would start to fidget, look at their phone, do things while you're talking. The third one was they would bring up different conversations, different topics of conversation, not listening, not engaging into or responding to you or any of that. And what that whole exercise was is how do you react to that person listening to you when they're not listening to you and so forth. So maybe that's part of it, right? Maybe the way you handle it, maybe the respond when they disappoint you. But I want you to ask yourself this question. What am I holding on to simply because it is familiar? What am I holding on to simply because it is familiar, right? Write down one word: money, fear, anger, control, procrastination, perfectionism, right? Whatever comes, right? Okay, so because this is the stuff I want you to look at. The whole thing is different circumstances, different lives, but underneath them, there's programming, right? The interesting part of this is you are not the same as you were. You won't be the same as you are, right? And here's what's interesting is that most of us already know what isn't working. Okay. The difficulty isn't always awareness. The difficulty isn't always awareness, guys. The difficulty is release. It's release, right? Because there's a big difference between saying, I know I need to change and actually change it, right? We've all experienced it, right? You know you should stop doing something. You know you should start doing something. You know that a relationship needs a different boundary. You know your business needs a different decision. You know you need to stop carrying something from 20 years ago. But knowing is not installation. That's the one of the central ideas inside the Aloha operating system that I've discovered. Information doesn't automatically become transformation, right? You can show up here every Monday night and you can take down all of this information and you can implement a little bit, you can put it all on and on. But if you don't do anything, it's not automatically going to happen for you, right? You can know what to do for 10 years and still operate the old operating program. Why? Because the old program is installed. The new ideas are merely information, right? We could go on. Yeah, but I've had success. Look at my career, right? My career, 30 years. And I've been so blessed to be around, excuse me, so blessed to be around some of the most amazing people and continually getting with others. But it's also been the same old program. For me to break out and do this new operating system, writing these books that are not in just one avenue of real estate, it is changing for me, right? But here's the whole thing: the new idea has got to be in transformation. And this is where the pressure appears, right? We don't normally, okay, we normally don't rise to the level of what we know. We fall back to what's installed, what's familiar, right? That's why this work that we're working on every week matters. We're not simply collecting better ideas, we're installing a better operating system because you don't rise, right? You don't rise to the level of what you know, you fall back to what's familiar. You run into something, it's a new pressure. That's why we all have coaches, right? That's why we all have coaches. And if you don't have a coach, you should have a coach or a mentor or whatever you want. Is because they're helping you build past that, right? That get things installed, right? So that you start working in a direction that while it's difficult, you could still do it, right? It was very difficult for me. It was very difficult for me to make, nah, I don't even want to say make the decision, but very difficult for me to say, okay, it's time to put the dog down. When we first got her, my wife wanted to go get a dog. She wanted that breed. We drove for a couple hours, I think it was up north, got it, and or went to the house. And my wife wanted a white poodle. And I've never been a fan of light fur dogs because a lot of times they get that the tear stain, right? The brown tear stain on it. So it's like, yeah, some never have that, but that's like I just don't want to deal with that, right? So we went in there, and there were several different colors. Mom was white, dad was a black poodle, and so I just stuck my head. They had it boxed off or gated off. I just stuck my hand into that area, and whatever dog came to me, I figured that's the one who chose me. So the one that came over, of course, was my black fur belt. And I went, "This is the one." She was like, "I want a white one." I said, "But this is the one." She chose me. So 15 years later, that dog is the most loyal dog that I've ever had. And 15, almost 16 years later, well, I guess this month she would have been 16. 16 years later, it came the time where she had to be put down, right? And so intellectually, it became, yeah, yeah, I could see that. Emotionally, I could see that she was in pain. Intellectually, I knew. And yet at the same time, I knew there was going to be a void, right? A massive void because we'd already gone from three down to two, and now we're down to one. This is massive void. Now, in all of that, add to it that my three daughters, two of them have now married and moved on. So we're down to an 18-year-old, right? Almost that empty nest. But we're also down to one dog. So things have to change, right? The familiar isn't what it is anymore. The familiar of three dogs, the familiar of three daughters, the familiar of, right? So all of that had to change. We have to look at it differently. My wife and I look at things differently. Our operating system has to change in this area, right? And that's where I came up with, I fine-tuned it over the week as well, guys, is that instead of paced with a D at the end of it, okay, it is pace. You've got to pay attention, right? Because this is where what we've been developing inside is critically important because of the framework of where I want to take all of this with you or take you on this, right? Pace, pause, acknowledge, correct, execute, right? Pause. You need to pause. Instead of automatically running the old program, stop. Create a little space, pause, right? Because you cannot change an old operating system you've never noticed, or not an old. You can't change an operating system, okay? You've never noticed running. So you need to pause. You need to acknowledge it, right? Tell the truth. There it is. My oldest response would have been this. The story I've been carrying would have been this. The belief I've been operating from, right? That it's recognition. There's no judgment in that. It's just acknowledging those things. And then you correct it. You ask yourself, what does the operating system I want to live say instead? Right? Not what did the old RG do, right? Not what the old programming was telling me. What is aligned now for me, right? And then the last is execute, move, do something. Because correction without execution is simply another good thought. Write that down. Correction without execution is simply another good thought. So pace, pause, acknowledge, correct, execute, right? The thing that I really love is when I was inspired with this is It's very, very simple because you don't have to correct your entire life at the same at one time. You just need to catch the old operating system. When it shows up and you get to interrupt it. You get to install something better through action, right? You get a pause, boom. Whoa, 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 wait a minute. Wait a minute. Mark Stewart and I were having a great conversation earlier or yesterday about this. If you're going through, hey, I want to save money. My new operating system is I want to save money, and then you see that you are unaccountably, hope that's the right word, unaccountably spending on Amazon. Well, now your new operating system is saying, hey, I've got to shut this. I want to do it differently. And so then what you do with the new operating system is you pause, boom. You acknowledge, yeah, okay, great. You then correct that and you execute. That might be, no, I really don't need that, right? That's something I don't need. Do I need, another watch? Do I? No. Okay, boom, you pull that back, right? So that's the beauty of what the whole thing with pace is to get you to start thinking that and using that word, right? Watch your pace, pay attention to your pace, pace yourself, those type of things, right? That have already been in our lives forever, right? Because another piece of this that we don't talk enough about is changing your operating system sometimes is saying goodbye to the old version of yourself. And that's very emotional, right? Even, even if the new version is better, the old version was the one you always rescued, where you always rescued everybody. The old version always said yes. The old version needed somebody's approval, right? The old version lived in survival mode. The old version believed success had to be difficult. The old version believed that money was hard to come by, it was scarce, right? Maybe the old version believed being busy meant being important, right? That you put it, busyness is important, right? You may logically know that that programming needs to go, but it's been with you for such a long time. You have to give yourself permission to acknowledge that, right? Then understand this: honoring what got you here does not require you to keep living there. Honoring what got you here does not require you to keep living there, right? So I can honor my past, but that doesn't mean I'm required to stay here, right? You don't have to be embarrassed by it. You don't have to, condemn the younger version of yourself. You can just simply say, hey, that served me then. It does not serve me now. And I'm choosing something different. It's called growth. It's called growth, right? The question that changes all of that conversation, right, is what am I keeping alive that has already completed its assignment in my life? That's going to be a hard one for you tonight. What am I keeping alive that has already completed its assignment in my life? A belief, a habit, identity, a resentment, a fear, uh, what's man? Yeah, any long lines of resentment, forgiveness, of fear, relationship, financial, definition of success, the need of approval. What have you been maintaining, not because it's working, but because it's familiar? And then ask the next question: who can I become if I stop protecting the old operating system? Who can I become if I stop protecting the old operating system? That's so powerful. Because sometimes we spend tremendous amount of energy attempting to build a new life, while simultaneously protecting the programming that created the old one. That's this internal conflict always going on. We spend time dreaming, energy, putting it all together to build a new life. I want this new money. I want this new lifestyle, all that kind of stuff. But we're simultaneously protecting the old programming or the programming that created the old one. We're not moving forward out of familiarity into the transformation. We're just not doing that. We're just not. So we're always at this conflict. And remember what I always tell you is that when you run into conflict, what happens? The familiar, the already installed wins. It already wins because what you do is when you hit that, you fall back. You fall back into the familiar. You fall back into what got you where you are. Then you're frustrated again because you're not moving forward, right? It's just this tremendous battle, this cycle that continues over and over and over again simply because we are afraid to let go. We are afraid to let go. Back to my dog. I knew intellectually she had reached the end of her cycle. I knew emotionally that she was in pain. My old programming, because it was going to be the loss of familiar, she wouldn't be around, delayed me, delayed me. Now, fortunately, the new programming overruled the old programming to understand that this wasn't about me. This was about her. This was about removing her pain. This was about enjoying the memories that she had created with us versus me hanging on, right? So I had to fight that. Took me just minutes, truly, because I saw her age. But it took me within a very short period of time to say, you know what? Change the new operating system. We will create new familiar, if you will, right? So this week's challenge, guys, this week's challenge. And then thank you so much again for listening and being on with me. And I need to go take care of my family. Here's the challenge. I want you to watch your pace, pause, acknowledge, correct, execute. Just watch, catch yourself, right? When something begins to happen and the automatic response begins, pause, notice it, acknowledge, whoa, 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 that's the old operating system, then correct it. What would the new operating or what would align, right? What would alignment look like? What would align with my new direction? And then finally execute, taking the aligned action, right? It might be tiny. Send an email, right? Don't send an angry text. Make the phone call, say no, say yes, right? Take the walk, close the browser, right? Make a decision, have the conversation, move the money, write the page, whatever it is. Whatever it is, because the new operating system becomes real through execution. And every time you do that, you weaken the old programming. Every time you do that, you strengthen the new. That is how the Aloha operating system works. And that's how an operating system changes. Not one giant moment, not one giant moment. It's through repeated aligned decisions. Okay. This week reminded me of letting go. That letting go could be incredibly difficult, especially when it's been part of your life for so long, right? And some things deserve to be remembered. Some things deserve to be honored. And some things leave a mark on us that we don't need to erase. But that it does not mean everything that has been with us must continue forward with us. Reason, a season, a lifetime, right? They're chapters, versions of ourselves. And sometimes the most loving, intelligent, aligned thing we can do is to recognize when something has completed its assignment. when that hit me the other day in preparing for this, right? What has completed its assignment in me? And then recognizing when something has completed that assignment, right? I don't want you to, oh, this week, I don't want you to attack your old operating system. I want you to observe it. I want you to understand it. I want you to think it if it needs to be, right? And then decide whether it still belongs in the life you're building. Remember that familiar does not always mean functional. And honor what you got here, but it does not require you to stay here. Okay. So when you're looking at it this week, I just want you to simply think we're improving the operating system, creating better outputs. That's it. That's it. We're improving the operating system, creating better better outputs. Okay. That's the work. That's the Aloha operating system. I want to thank you so much that you allowed me to be here tonight. Sorry, I've got some things flashing on my screen. Got to be here tonight through the recording. So apologize. It's late. Short notice on it, but you will get this via in video. And with that, I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Talk to you soon.